Hey, it's Max. So recently I released 2 videos on my channel showing off my Lego X'Trapolis model. In this video I'm going to go into more detail about it, and get no views, and of course if you have any questions feel free to leave them in the comments. So let's start at the beginning. Why did I design this model? Well, I was scrolling YouTube about 6 months ago and came across this video of a miniature Greater Anglia train by a guy called Larry, and oh okay, wasn't expecting that. Hi Larry. Anyway, where was I? So I found this video which, coming off the back of my mostly successful B-class MOC, more on that is coming in the future, inspired me to design my own train based on a local one. I had the choice between the Comeng, Siemens Nexus, HCMT, and of course X'Trapolis, or any of these older ones, and landed on the X'Trapolis because of its relatively angular design and overall interest. So after deciding what to design, I sat down at my computer, opened Bricklink Studio, hit Ctrl-V, and voila, an X'Trapolis. Well, no, not quite, unfortunately. It was the school holidays and I had some time to kill, so I spent 5 days putting together as accurate a design as I could, with reference images from Vixig and MPTG, eventually landing with this. You may notice it's a bit bland. That's because it was only a few days later that I'd come back to add the fantastic livery, which by the way is probably one of my favourite things about the model. I was pleased with the completed model and shared it around on Discord and Reddit. That was back in January, and at the time I did not have anywhere near the funds needed to purchase the pieces to build it, so I decided to design a shorter version which would be closer to a viable price range. I considered designing another livery based on the Valparaiso X'Trapolis to give myself an excuse to make it 2 cars long, but settled on just the first car with an added pantograph from the middle car for completeness, and this is eventually what I ended up getting. A few months pass and 3 of the largest Bricklink orders I've ever made later, here it is. Along with the X'Trapolis, I also got some bits and bobs to work on 3 other builds which I'll show off in future videos. Unlike my B-class, the X'Trapolis is mostly made of in-production pieces, so I don't have to be stuck with scratched and yellow parts. I wanted to build the whole thing in one go to get a continuous time-lapse, so I sat on the parts for a few weeks before I built it, waiting for the right opportunity, and it was definitely worth it. It was a few weeks after that I went out with my good friend Ollie for a day to film around the network, really just 3 stations and only on the Burnley group, to make the introductory video of the model. Overall, I'm very happy with how it turned out, and so are 400 of you guys. Thanks. Anyway, more of the actual model. Quick stats. It's 54 centimeters long, 8 centimeters wide, and 16 centimeters tall, 12 without the pantograph. That's 62 studs long, 10 studs wide, and 17 bricks tall with the pantograph, 13 bricks without. It's built with around 1,600 bricks at a 1:44 scale. And in a bit more detail. The walls are built up of 8 articulated snot panels and 6 door panels per side, linking together to form 2 sections per side, something which you can see more clearly in the construction time-lapse. I really recommend you watch that. I couldn't use full bricks on the upper panels at the interface between the 2 sections, because they would interfere with the angle that they needed to be set in, which does unfortunately mean the tiles are not completely flush, but overall I think it's a clever solution to the problem. The roof consists of 2 removable sections with 3 supporting sections, one of which has no direct connection to the stud base, instead resting entirely on the angled walls. The other 2 are hybrids of this and resting on the interior end walls. I think these are the aircon units, but feel free to correct me in the comments. And these were surprisingly hard to design with the curve on the side, trying to get it at a good angle without making it too tall, too steep, or too shallow. I originally designed the pantograph for my B-class, based on the one I had designed for my D-classes. This is all you get to see of them for now. But it turned out to be too big for both the B-class and the X'Trapolis, so I shrunk down the arms slightly and settled on this. Over to the cab, which is made up of 3 panels per side for the doors and angled walls, and 2 or 3 articulated sections for the cab facade depending on how you count it, with an extra panel on the roof to fill in the gap. Since I hadn't tested any of the design before I built it, not a smart move by the way, the cab was originally very weak, which once again you can see as I struggled to build it in the time-lapse. However, after making some modifications it is much stronger now. The cab took me the longest out of everything to design, over a day, just down to how hard I find it to get the complex angles, proportions, and features as accurate as possible, and even now I'm still changing things here and there. There was also the door to connect to the currently non-existent adjoining carriage, along with the wacky tubular concertina. I used a building technique that I'm pretty sure is illegal to make the buffers on the end, however the ones on the cab are within the law. Moving down to the undercarriage, I've recreated the stuff down there as best I could with the limited reference material I had, and I reckon I did a good job. The bogies are also built to scale using my own suspension technique, which is much better than the real thing I can assure you, but to get that little bit of extra detail in, I've recreated the springs out of studs. It can be motorized, something which I'm working on, but I don't know what the best or cleanest way to power the bogies is, as I have a limited collection of Lego motors. This is all I have going spare. and although I haven't updated the digital model, the bogies are in different locations on each car. Speaking of other cars, as I addressed earlier, there are meant to be 3 cars in the set, and I only have 1. The other cab car in the set is identical to this one, with the exception that neither of them are meant to have a pantograph. That goes to the central car, which is exactly what you'd expect with the arrows from the livery continued, and the undercarriage as detailed as I could manage. The cab is linked together with one of my favourite pieces, along with the 2x2 turntables, toe balls, but maybe not how you'd expect. The set can also be connected to other sets with a different length connector. So that's my X'Trapolis. I probably left something out of my script, as there was a lot to cover, but it was fun building the model and sharing it all with you. If by some miracle you're watching it as it releases, and it releases on a Friday, don't expect the weekly schedule to continue. My next videos will probably be on some of my more technical tram designs, even if it gets relatively few views. And get excited because some of them are years in the making. Anyway, if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Oh, it didn't crash.